A young man was with us yesterday morning, and I don't know what it had to do with what we were talking about. He said he had to go, leave, getting ready for the Super Bowl. It's just the Super Bowl until 6 o'clock this evening. I guess he prepared for a party. I'm like this, and the Imam was similar to this. He mentioned one time he was doing a khutbah on a talim. He said, I want to tell you all, I wanted to stay home today to watch the Bears. But he said, I couldn't, because I feel that God has given me a responsibility, and I don't want anything to come before this responsibility. Yeah, I would be myself personally. I'd like to be at home watching some basketball today and doing some things, but anytime we have, I think, occasion that require that we come together, I think we should do it. We want to thank those who came out to the class this morning. I'm going to use these words. I thought we had a ball game going that would win the series. It was really nice. Interaction. You don't need 50 people. Just people who are interested. And we want to also thank Sister Aisha. She's doing a fabulous job with the school. We hope that she continues. And I'll leave it at that. We have with us today Imam Abdul Azeez. Hadn't been here for a little while. He has his own masjid now, Masjid Adam in New York. So he knows what it is to try to do something from the ground up, because actually that's what's going on. You go into these places now, you have to rebuild them. One of the things that I think that we have to be concerned about as a community as we move forward is that since the Imam passed, it seemed like the community have gotten looser and looser and looser. More loose. And when you travel around the country, you see that. And so it should be a concern to everybody. It should definitely be a concern to everybody. Because we're still a community. We still have a common history. And I think that we should be proud of that. And I hope and pray to Allah that we just don't become a community of Juma people. Because that's what we're doing all over the country. Just like our immigrant brothers and sisters. Juma, we're there. Talim, someplace they don't even have talim. I thought that they had a large talim in D.C. Imam Naeem let me know that they didn't. And if they had it, he was teaching it. Before he went there was no talim. Talim is a time for us to study and to interact. What you teach on Friday, you sit on the floor and say, I got a question about that. But you better not jump up and say, Takbir, I need to ask you a question. I'm going to say this about something that happened yesterday morning, then I'm going to introduce Imam Abdul Azeez. Turn the mic over to him. We had our brother's class. And sister, we wasn't shooting the breeze. I want to let y'all know that. I heard somebody say, brother sit around shooting the breeze. That's not true. We are serious. I can't say who said it, but the person sitting in this room said that we get out and come out in the morning and shoot the breeze. That's not true. We have some very exciting interactions, and anybody who comes back will tell you the same thing. We're able to deal with things that we normally wouldn't be able to deal with. Men have men issues. Women have women issues. Some of those things should be dealt with in a separate setting. So if I want to cuss a brother out, I cuss him out in the class. All right, well, yesterday morning, a brother came in from Syria. After I led the prayer and recited Juma, the longest surah that I know in the Quran. And of course, one brother told me, you need to learn some more surahs. We were leaving that morning. He said, I hear you say Juma all the time. I said, I know some more short surahs. But when I want to go long, I recite Juma. And then I didn't think to tell him this because we were moving. There was a person in the town of Prophet Muhammad who used to do Surah Ikhlas in every rak'ah. And some people complain about it. And the Prophet straightened it out. No, that was beautiful that he was doing it like that. So don't worry about how much you know. We hope and pray to Allah that we can learn more. But people will come among you and they can recite more. African Americans have been away overseas and they don't know what they're talking about. I'm not criticizing that. That's just the truth. But anyway, he comes in yesterday morning. After we finish, he gets up front. If the sheikh would give me 3 minutes, it turned into 5. The sheikh just recited Jumu'ah. Yeah. Either say إذا نوديت الصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله. I said, man, this guy's into it, boy. ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. He said, business should not be doing Jum'ah. I went to SGC and they were buying and selling during Juma after and before and after. Before and after. And I approached them and they said, brother, how dare you talk to us this way? We have a PhD for our imam. That's the problem. So I told him, I said, maybe they do what we do. We tell the people that when the first adhan is called, they should start wrapping up. And by the time the second adhan is called, everybody should be inside the musalla. We shouldn't be out there. So he wasn't criticizing us, he was criticizing them for 3 minutes. Then he said, I need to go now, brother. He said, I guess he sounded like one of the Tabligh Jamaat brothers. I need to go. So we gave him his 5 minutes. Now, if he come back next week, we say, you can't have no time, brother. All right. All praise due to. I'm going to turn the mic over to Imam Abdul Azeez. He has a book that's coming out called Masjid. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I just wanted to say before you all got started, because I might have to leave early, that Brother Fareed,
Yeah, free. He's
going to have surgery, so.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm aware. He didn't want any visitors. Say he didn't want any visitors. You know, we were aware. We offered do out of this place. Huh? I don't know. He is sort of invasive, I think. What kind of surgery? I know it related to his diabetes. Okay. He's written a book. Inshallah, we'll offer dua on this prayer. He's written a book called Master Bilal. He's working on the book. And he used a title that he got from Imam Muhammad. Imam Muhammad did a lecture called Master Bilal. And he made the presentation last year in New Jersey. What part of New Jersey? Longside, New Jersey. And he made that presentation. And Imam Yahya Abdullah said he should make that a book. He said it's real good. I don't know, I think Shoaib might have been there too.
No.
He wasn't there last year? Okay, Salim. Okay.
It was at the 4th annual Day with the Prophets program.
Okay, good. We're going to let you tell them about it, so praise, inshallah. I'm going to turn the mic over to him. Assalamu
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين وصلاة الله وسلامه ورحمته وبركاته على صفوة الخلق سيدنا محمد وعلى أهله طاهرين وعلى أصحابه أجمعين ورحمة الله ومغفرته على تابعين وتابعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. والسلام على إمام ورثدين والسلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. We begin with the name of Allah, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. We praise Him, we seek His aid, and we humbly ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to establish the prayers, peace, mercy, and blessings upon His noble messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we humbly ask Allah to establish the same prayers, peace, mercy, and blessings upon all of His family members who followed Him in purification. And we humbly ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to establish the same prayers, peace, mercy, and blessings upon all of His illustrious companions together. We ask the forgiveness of Allah and mercy upon the followers and their followers in goodness to the day of judgment. And we humbly ask Allah to have mercy and peace upon Imam Dr. Warthadi Muhammad, rahimahullah. And we ask Allah to establish peace amongst ourselves, no matter where we may be, no matter where we may be from. And to all of that, we say Ameen. I openly bear witness that there is none worthy of worship or praise except Allah, who is unique without any associate whatsoever. And I bear witness that Muhammad is His servant and messenger. Allah calls our attention in the Quran and He says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. O you who have obtained true faith, be mindful of Allah and fear Him with a rational fear, and let every person consider what they put out for tomorrow. And be mindful of Allah, fearing Him rationally, for surely He is aware of everything that you do. We want to begin by thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and thanking Masjid Ash-Shaheed, Imam Khalil. And we thank Allah for another chance to sit before you in this blessed place during this blessed time, in front of this blessed congregation. As you know, this is February, the Black History Month. And in Black history, in Arabic, the term that's used for Black history, the term used for Black history in Arabic, let me see here. Tariqul Aswad, right? Okay, Aswad. Now, Black history, as we know it, they got 28, what we got, 28 days this year? 28?
Yeah, I think so.
Black history. And that's pretty much predicated on their narrative of our history. So they have Black History Month. Black History Month. And looking at the teachings of Imam Dr. Warthadi Muhammad, we remember that how we got here. Most people will look at Black history and think that our mission started in slavery, and that's about it. But if you do a little light research, you'll figure that we were someone before slavery and we're someone after slavery. Slavery did not make us or break us. Slavery is not our claim to fame. Excuse me. And sometimes you hear people talk about the slaves, and when they talk about the slaves, they talk about them in a condescending way. They talk about the slaves like the slaves had a choice, or like the slaves were born just to be slaves, the way they speak about them. And if you have ancestors that were slaves, they kind of sort of give you this indication that you're not going to go any further than they did. And this is a problem. It's a problem because some of us even believe that we are not going to be nothing. You look at the African American community, the black community, you'll find that we are suffering. We're trying to be everybody else but ourselves. We don't know who we are. We don't know where we're going. And so when we talk about the Muslim identity, we have to go back to a wise saying by Imam Muhammad. May Allah be pleased with him. And he said, if you're looking for the Muslim identity, then look at the lives of the companions. Look at the companions. And to take that logic a step further for Muslim identity, like the Imam said, we have an upcoming book, inshallah, that's predicated off of a presentation we did. And what we did in the presentation, we took the statement that the Imam had about the companions for Muslim identity, and we took it a step further. And the step further that we took it was, as we said, that find the companion that you can relate to. He said, if you're looking for the Muslim identity, look at the companions. So I say, well, at the same time I'm looking at the companions, I need to look at one in which I can relate to. Which companion of the Prophet ﷺ that can relate to me? I hear about the companions, and some of them were rich. I'm not rich. I don't have money like that. Some of them were poor, and that's how they were the poor Sahaba, and they were satisfied with being like that. I can't relate. I can relate to not having, but I can't relate to just staying like that. Okay? And my wife can't relate either to that either. Making sure you better have something, brother, right? But that's the push. That's the push that she's supposed to give you, so we don't stay like that. But in another idea that's being presented is that here it is, the companions of the Prophet are this select group of people that had the choice opportunity, that they were chosen by Allah to be around the greatest of all time in terms of prophets, because his message was the last message. And not to say that he was better than all the other prophets, but to say that his message capped all of the prophets. So those around him was a select group. In his select group, he had all of these different people, all of them, Umar, Abu Bakr. But then he had Bilal ibn Rabah, who was among them too. And every now and then they would remind you of Bilal being a slave. Every now and then they tell you, right? Even when they talk to us today and they talk to us about Islam, for some reason or another, they can't miss the fact that Bilal was a slave before. So when you talk about his story, you talk about him as a slave, but you don't talk about any of the other companions like that. There were companions who were drunkards before they came into Islam, who used to kill and harm Muslims. And when you say their name, you don't say that the guy used to do this and that. So why, when you mention Bilal, you seem to want to mention that he's a slave and give you the nudge, Yeah, he was, Bilal, the first muezzin, he was slave. And you're giving us this indication that, that's all Bilal was. And in reality, if you look at his life, Bilal was just not only a slave. Bilal had entered into a contract with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that freed him of being in bondage to anybody. So slave was what he used to be. He didn't die a slave of a slave master. He died a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who was free, who was a free man in the city, if you will. But if you do a little history on our narrative, you find that there were a lot of people trying to have control of the way we think about ourselves, the social scientists, if you will. And they want us to think about each other a certain way. And some of them want you to think that you're nothing, man. So when we refer back to each other, we don't have the respect or love or the kindness that we're supposed to have. We don't big each other up. We don't back each other. We're supposed to be looking at each other like, you're nothing and you're never going to be nothing. What you trying to do that for? That kind of thing. Because the social scientists know that if you saw someone in your eyes as an example of greatness, then 9 out of 10 times you're going to aspire to that. So the social scientists knew that, so what they do? Anybody that had the potential of being great in your eyes, they want to make them look like they're less than. So why not tell you about being a slave? drop that on you real quick. You know, you Muslim, yeah. But you Bilal slave. And give you this indication that you're nothing. But in reality, the same Bilal was the same guy who the Prophet ﷺ heard his footsteps precede his in paradise. Greatest honor, if you will. The greatest honor. So when we're looking for the Muslim identity as Muslims, as black Muslims, if you will, we're looking for the Muslim identity. We're following what the leader said. He said, if you want to find the Muslim identity, look at the companions. Why is it? Why do you look at the companions? Because they got it first. They were the greatest teachers. They received the message. They had the same sentiments that we had. They had 24 hours in a day just like us. They didn't have superpowers. They were human beings. And the Quran itself is a book, the greatest book of psychology that you can ever read. It's telling you about hatred. It's telling you about love. It's telling you about kindness, honesty. All of these mindsets, when they don't hear what they want to hear, how they act. The Quran is telling us this. So because the Quran is directing us, and these are the people who got the Quran first, naturally their message or their example would be something I want to look at. But to take it a step further, we look at who can we relate to? Who can we relate to in this instance? And there's no other name that comes up than Bilal ibn Rabah. Julabib and a couple of other companions, Zayd ibn Osama ibn Zayd and all these other companions, they were black too. But Bilal was the one that we can relate to, because after Bilal was enslaved, he was told that he was nothing and his mother was nothing and he could never be anything, and they continued to benefit off of his work. Worked Bilal long hours and they benefited from him, from his long hours of work. And then what they would do is they would take the credit for all the work that Bilal was doing. Can you relate to that? Can you relate to someone always telling you that you'll never be anything, so they even look in that direction? There's always someone better than you, right? Can you relate to that? Can you relate to the idea that Bilal, not only was Bilal put in a situation that was by force, he didn't choose to get into that situation. Same thing with our ancestors. They didn't choose to get into that situation. So we can relate, if you will. We can relate. Another thing that we can relate to is Bilal's disposition toward it all. When he got the truth, he never went back. When he finally heard the truth, they forced him to worship idols. And he knew something was wrong with this thing here. So when he heard the message of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he went down there, man, and he confronted the idols himself. And he spat in one of the idols' faces. And somebody seen him and ran back to his slave master and told him. And when they confronted Bilal, Bilal couldn't hold it in anymore. That he wasn't worshiping this idol. You forced me to do this. I never even was involved with this anyway. I never liked this anyway. And so when he got the truth, he never went back. Many of us, when we heard the truth for the first time, you know, because they had this mentality here in this country. I know when my father was a little boy, he had to get shipped to, when he was a young man, he had to leave in the night to go to New York City because they wanted to hang him, because the story goes that he was assaulted by a white guy, and he assaulted him back, and he kind of did a little more to him than than it was done to him. So he defended himself, and so back then you had to, you know, if you did something like that, they were looking to lynch you. He was right there in Hickory, North Carolina, in the sticks. So he got out of there and went to the city, and he never recovered from that. My father never recovered from that. But what happened was, as a result, you found during that time, they would always try to make it seem as though we were nothing as a people. You can't drink here, you got to sit on the back of the bus. And they continued to put this in there, and they put the image of the Caucasian image of God, saying that's God, when that's not God, but that was an image that they wanted you to believe. Okay, don't look them in the face. I remember as a little boy coming to Hickory, they said, don't look them in the face, don't talk back to them. And I didn't understand that. I didn't really understand that. So when they said it to me, it just went in one ear and came out the other until I was bullied by the white paper boy, and I used to whip him every day after I seen him. So every day I used to see him, I'd jump on him every day. And so what it was a reverse of that. Who is this little black boy whipping on me, you know? But he used to whip all the black kids. They'd be running from this guy, you know? And so I didn't understand that. I just understood that if somebody did something to you, defend yourself, and that was that. We wasn't looking for no trouble, but that's what he was into. His parents told him to be like that. That was a learned behavior, you see? So just like that behavior was a learned behavior, they also teach people how to be slaves. You ever read that book, How to Be a Slave Kit? How to Make a Slave Kit? And so what they do is a learned behavior. We have slavery right now in this society. It's just on a different level. You have the slave masters, they're corporate now, you see. And you got the slaves that are still out there, but they're slaves to the music now. They're slaves to the fads. They're slaves to material. They're slaves to all of those things. And out of fear of losing those things, they have this how would you say, this rigid adherence to not losing it. You see, like they're slaves to name brand stuff. You know, they're slaves to everything fast. You see, they're slaves to everything that doesn't mean hard work. You see, they don't value the things that they should be valuing. And they don't have a good representation or a good opinion about themselves. So when anytime someone is in front of them that looks like them, they don't respect it. This is part of that social, how would you say, that social psychology to continue hating yourself. So I told you that you was nothing. So what am I going to do? Make you believe it. So then you exemplify that. You ain't nothing, man. I've had teachers in school, white teachers in school, elementary school. You ain't going to be nothing. You see? And you wonder why they tell us that stuff. So Bilal, at the same time, Bilal ibn Rabah, who we can relate to. So I isolate the discussion on him in black history for us because that's part of our history. We are the Aswad. In Arabic, we are the Aswad. Some people say Amriki Aswad, black American. Amriki Aswad, right? But the Aswad is actually the name. American was never really our name either. So a lot of people don't realize that. American wasn't our name and African wasn't our name. Africa was named after a European guy. How is that our name? European guy, him and his brother. You know, Africanus, Vito and his brother, right? So that wasn't our name. So there was a name that we had before that. They don't want to. So what they do is they take the term Sudan, and Sudan was the whole continent, and they just broke it all up and separated Egypt, right? But all the people were the same people, right? But anyway, what they did for us was they made it seem like we had to be somebody else named. In order for us to be legitimate, somebody else has to name us. Somebody else has to call us something. But what about what we call ourselves? You see, historically, Aswad, you know, it means black. Sudan, the land of the two blacks. You see. But we look at this idea being presented, it's more closely related to where we came from and the area in which we lived. And what happens to us, sometimes we forget that we were somebody or part of something before we even came here in the Middle Passage. And there were some heroes in the Middle Passage, but they would want you not to hear about them. They would want you to hear about, you know, like that movie that came out with it. What was the name of the movie back in the day? Amistad. But there was another thing like that took place in Haiti and various other places that took place like that. People fighting for their freedom. When the slaves did that, they were considered wrong because they didn't have a right to be free. At least that's the way they want to narrate it to us. Our narrative dictates that we've always had the right to be free, according to what Allah said. Historically, we'll find they always want to make the connection and think our story only begins at slavery. But our story begins before that. We were somebody before that. Or better yet, our story begins in segregation, or our story begins in Jim Crow. You see? But our story doesn't begin in any of those phases of our history. Our story began before we even got here. Before we even got on the coast, before we got to this continent, we were somebody. Historically, you look at the prophets, may Allah, peace be upon all of them, and you'll find that all of them came to people that look like us. When we look at the history of the prophet, you'll find Bilal's story is a very unique story. Why was Bilal's story so unique? Well, because his mother, Bilal's mother and father were born in Mecca. His father was from Mecca. Bilal was born in Mecca. His mother was born in Abyssinia, and she was captured during the year of the elephant, during Abraha's attempt to break the Kaaba. So she was captured. 10 years later, Bilal was born in Mecca, whose father was Meccan, black Meccan, you see. And you look at his history and you find that his history is just like ours. His father and father were enslaved. He was born into it, so he had to accept the conditions that his mother and father were under. Sounds like us. Accepted the conditions that we were under. But when he got some insight, when he got the information he needed to get out of that, he knew it was wrong. He didn't accept that in his heart. Many of our ancestors never accepted slavery. And some of them didn't even make it over here. They went overboard. Millions of them, you see. So when we talk about our history, there is a greater reflection when it comes down to some of the iconic figures that we can point to, and Bilal ibn Rabah is one of them. Why is it so important for us to look at Bilal? Because our leader knew something about that, and he knew something about social psychology. Whereas if you give somebody something to look at that they can be proud of, that can empower them, then that's a good chance that they're going to be empowered. Look at this social reform of the Nation of Islam, how that came about. They gave you an empowering message. They didn't give you a message telling you anything about being a slave. They gave you the direct opposite of that. They gave you a message that would empower you. And then they gave you some lessons that made you seem like you was a scientist or something. You see? But their message, Farad, his message was, and they say that Farad borrowed his message from another guy named W.D. Trottles. And he says that he wrote this thing about the God in you. He was in the 1700s, the God in you. And W.D. Trottles was a guy that dealt with social psychology. And he talked about the God within. W.D. Farad, he came with that message. Who is the black man, right? The Asiatic black man, the owner of the cream of the planet Earth, right? Then he went on and took it a step further. God of the universe, right? Astaghfirullah, right? We know Allah, there's no God but Allah. But he put that out there so that to empower you, to make you think that you're better than all of that's been put against you. You see? And once the African American got that message, there's no such thing as white supremacy then. They want to know why we're angry. They want to know why we were angry, right? That this lifestyle was supposed to be something that we're supposed to accept. And then when we started talking about being separate, when we started talking about not being engaged in the things that they were engaged in, then they began to take a closer look at what are they talking about down there? Why they don't want to be with us? Why are they separatists? They call us the separatists. The black Muslim separatist. But you didn't invite us in from the beginning. You're the one that started that. Don't drink from this fountain. You can't eat here. You see how they try to reverse that? So this was something that was, it was law. It was law. It was the law here in the United States that said that you couldn't go here and you couldn't go there. You couldn't drink from that fountain. You couldn't go to this school. You couldn't sit here. It was the law. So they had already accepted it. But we didn't accept it. And likewise, Bilal ibn Rabah, may Allah be pleased with him, he didn't accept certain things. There were some things that started with his soul. His soul didn't accept that. His soul couldn't accept the fact that he was owned by another man. His soul didn't accept that. And when he heard the message of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he went forward. They talk about this idea behind Bilal ibn Rabah, may Allah be pleased with him, being such an iconic figure. There was a lot of racism in Mecca before and after Bilal became a Muslim. And sometimes people forget that there was a lot of ayats of the Quran that were revealed because of Bilal. People don't want to even tell you that. They'll just tell you that there was, he was a slave, he first a Adhan caller, but he was more than that. See, every time the people didn't like something that Bilal did, they would run to the Prophet ﷺ and they would complain. One incident, you had Bilal calling the Adhan on the top of the Kaaba. This is after Islam, man. And they came to him complaining. Why would you allow a slave to call the Adhan on top of the Kaaba? Why would you choose him? Why could you not choose someone of nobility to come and call it? And they came and complained to the Prophet ﷺ about Bilal. One time, Bilal ibn Rabah was in a situation where he was called a derogatory term, Ibn Aswad, Ibn Saudi, right? The son of a black woman. This was supposed to be a derogatory term. And I will declare to you all today that I am indeed the son of a black woman. And proud of that. Okay, very proud of that. And they just made it into a derogatory terminology referencing Bilal. But what made it so crazy was it was another black man saying it to him. Don't that remind us of something? Don't it remind us of something? That another black person is doing that to you. Unbelievable. So when they came to the Prophet ﷺ about Bilal, complaining about Bilal's status, the Prophet ﷺ, he received the ayat of the Quran, Ya ayyuhan nas, inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wal untha, wa ja'alnakum shu'uba wa qaba'ila lita'arafu. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. And so Allah says, "O people, I created you from a male and a female and made you into tribes and nations so that you may recognize the good in one another. Verily, the most honored of you in the sight of Allah is he who is most God conscious." This ayat was revealed because of Bilal. It was revealed because there was still racism in the ranks. It wasn't the Quraysh coming to the Prophet ﷺ as Quraysh per se, but it was Muslims coming to him, claiming that there was some nobility that was beyond what Bilal represented. When Bilal took the Shahada, he was already freed. So Allah revealed the verse that all of those pagan ideas that you guys have about notoriety, about status, they're no longer effective. And in fact, the best of you is the only person is more conscious of Allah. That's the only one that gets the high honors here. But Allah revealed that verse. But then the Prophet ﷺ saw it necessary to not only allow him to call the Adhan, but he made him the treasurer. He made Bilal the treasurer so that now when you need something to eat, you got to go to Bilal, the guy that you don't like, you complained about, the black man. You got to go to him, you see. And then the Prophet ﷺ made it almost impossible for you to come meet with him without having to go through Bilal first. So now you had to go to Bilal first to meet with him. You had to go to Bilal first if you wanted something to eat. You had to go to Bilal first if you was going to pray. And when you entered the Prophet's knocked on his door, Bilal would open the door. Now here it is, the Prophet ﷺ hearing the complaint, and what he did was he began to put Bilal in more spots, showing the people that Allah is what Allah is saying is true, and what you're saying don't make a difference. Doesn't matter. Why? Because in this day and time we see right now, why are people always reminding me of Bilal being a slave? Why do you keep reminding me of that? I just asking, you just reminding me of that. You don't think that we know he was a slave before? Many of our ancestors were slaves. But get a load of this. Bilal didn't die a slave. He died a slave of Allah, a servant of Allah, who had got the highest compliment that you can probably ever get from the Prophet ﷺ about your footsteps preceding him in paradise. And Bilal, may Allah be pleased with him, was not someone that was known for heavy insights and all this, but he was very insightful. He was a very knowledgeable guy. But Umar ibn al-Khattab, who called Bilal Master Bilal, he said, here goes our master who was liberated by our master. And he was talking about Bilal and Abu Bakr. May Allah be pleased with them. But one day he went to Bilal and he asked Bilal, he said, oh Bilal, he says, why was it when you were being persecuted that you said ahad, ahadun, ahad, ahadun, ahad? Why was that the only thing that you said? And he said, verily, had I known more from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I would have said more. Now, why am I bringing this point up? Because this point relates to us. See, there was a time in which our community was in a situation where we only knew a couple of things about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we accepted that and ran with that. You only knew a few things about Allah and the nation of Islam. And that was enough to get you to go all over this country. That was enough to get you to promote the message, to go fishing. And you carried that little itty bit with enthusiasm. And you shared it with everybody. And people were coming to it because they saw your enthusiasm. They saw the dedication. They saw the brotherhood, the togetherness, the harmony, the concern that we had for each other as a community. And it's sad to say today, you ask, where has that all gone? Now that you've gotten the real message. Now that you've gotten the real message, you got the full package. And you were able to do so much with a deficient package. Now you got the full package. Now you have the full package. And we can't find people now to do anything. We had a deficient package. People were coming out everywhere working, man. Our workers. Our workers now in our community around the country are actually people that are over 60 years old that are still working hard in the community. Some of them in their 70s. Working hard, man. Keeping that fire going. Because the younger guys, us younger people, you can't find us. Now, who do you blame for that? You see? And what happens is Allah takes us through some things in order to get us to do something else. Bilal had to go through that in order for him to get the reward that Allah had for him. He had to go through that. Our people had to go through all of that we went through in this country to be where we are, where we're trying to go. At no time was Allah absent, but that was Allah's test on us. He says, لِنَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا, to test you to see which one of you is best indeed. Who will do better? Put that out there on you to see who's going to do better. Imam Muhammad, may Allah be pleased with him, said that you will not know who you are unless you're facing something. You won't know who you are. You will never know who you are if you're someone with your feet up relaxing all the time. How you know who you are, man? You up with your feet up. You're reclining. Everything is just a party, right? but you will not know who you are. Try different with a friend. You'll know whether that friend is really your friend or not. You want to know who your friends are? Disagree with them. And see if they see your number and do this. Listen, who that Imam Khalil?
Oh, don't tell on yourself.
Right? Imam Khalil. Right? That's what happens when you differ. When you differ, you find out who your friends are. You know, I have disagreed with people, and I see the number, and my gender say, "Man, don't answer that, man." But I answered anyway, because all you did was just disagree. That's all you did. You didn't change nothing. And see, what happens is sometimes people will wrong you and think that you're going to be like them and don't say nothing to them. But when you say something to them, you shock them into reality. Maybe I need to do something different, because I'm surprised he said something to me, right? But our community is a community that's predicated, it was born out of conflict, if you will. It was born out of trial and tribulation. The best of us came out of that. And that trial or tribulation that we had to go through, it brought out the best in us. This is why it was so easy for people to come over and accept Islam when it was presented to us in its proper form. How it was so easy for us to accept it. For us to go and start making 5 prayers and learning Arabic and things like that. It's important that we understand this concept of black history. Black history, according to our narrative, what really happened to us. Not a commercial idea, but an idea that this is what we lived through, this is what we're going through, and our story matters, just like our lives. But if you're looking at an iconic figure that will address our needs in terms of one who went through something and got through it and got the greatest reward, then you would have to look at the story of Bilal ibn Rabah. May Allah be pleased with him. Imam Muhammad directed us to look at the companions for the Muslim identity. And by looking at the Muslim identity, we can, and he goes back before slavery, right? He goes back. And he goes back during a time where people were being persecuted for their faiths. But they were also being persecuted because of the color of their skin. He was born into slavery because of the fact that his mother was captured during the time in which they were trying to destroy the Kaaba. And so he was born 10 years later to a Meccan father, Abyssinian mother, but he had never been to Abyssinia. So they give you these misconceptions about Bilal ibn Rabah, and that if you really look into his life, you'll find that there are some things that Arabic was his first language. But they'll make you think he didn't know Arabic. How could you be the treasurer and not know Arabic? How could you be the one calling the adhan and don't know Arabic? How could you be the person that when they knocked on the prophet's door, you're opening the door and saying, "What do you want?" And he didn't know Arabic. Sometimes you got to call somebody else in this discussion. You got to call up common sense. Get him on the line. Get him in here. We need you down here now. We need you down here now. You got to get him in here, right? Because what they do is they try to talk to us like we don't even know what we can't even think. They want you to think a certain way, so that just like the social scientists want you to believe something. They tell you your people are nothing, nobody, all your heroes are nowhere, they're nothing. So you don't become a hero. So you don't have a pattern to follow. So you don't follow nothing. So you don't help nobody. You see? So they try to trademark who you're supposed to be. And in their minds, you're supposed to be this little itty bitty person that don't have no aspirations, no dreams. That you don't have nothing to go by, nothing to follow. You see? And Bilal showed us that in his story. That he had some morals, and his future was telling him this was wrong. And when he finally got the message, he connected the dots, and he never went back. Even when they persecuted him, even when they did whatever they did to him, right? And he deserved the highest honor in the community because of the fact of what he went through as a means to proclaim the message that you weren't persecuted because you were proclaiming. They did that to him because of his low status in society. But there were many others who proclaimed the same thing. They weren't persecuted like that. He was persecuted like that because he didn't have no tribe backing him. And people might make you think that they didn't have no black tribes in Mecca, and that's a lie. And they had some that was more prestigious than others. Bilal wasn't from a prestigious one. His family. But at the same time, they'll make us think that he was the only black guy that was in Mecca at the time. I'll tell you that. He was the only black guy there, you know. And they give you that story, you see, and you wonder why. Okay, you wonder why. And for us, those who give deep thought, if he was the only guy, that makes his story even a greater story. He's the only one, and he stood up against all of that. He was the only one, and y'all couldn't break him. And he looked like me. You see? So that even gives, for those who are thinking, right, you say, well, I'll use that to our advantage too. But that wasn't the case. There's always been a part of the society that were considered less than, that people used to violate and disrespect all the time. And this was part of the prophet's mission. His mission was to liberate all those people who were being persecuted. Prior to the prophet becoming the prophet, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he was part of a group that were about human rights. Okay. And he never accepted idols. He wasn't an idol worshiper. And he was always engaged in the concerns about the well-being of others. And when the Prophet ﷺ heard about Bilal, he sent somebody over. He sent his close friend Abu Bakr over there. And Abu Bakr went over there and took care of business, got him out of there. And from that day forward, he never left the Prophet's side. He was at every battle with him, every prayer with him. He did everything that you can possibly do with the Prophet ﷺ. Everything. And he was accompanying him all the time. And so, despite the fact that they complained to the Prophet about his blackness, about his low status, the Prophet made it clear, and he didn't have to argue with them, he just made sure Bilal was everywhere. And just like the black American, he and she is everywhere. He and she is where people, you'll be surprised how many inventions, how many people in the black community have actually set the path for stuff that they won't tell you. The social scientists will hide that from you. Y'all didn't know nothing about Hidden Figures before that movie came out. I know I didn't. And they had the nerve to call it Hidden Figures, telling you what it actually was. They told you exactly what it was. And then it celebrated our women. Ain't that something? See, because the women they've always allowed our women to get in, and they've always had their way to get in and have a deep impact. It was the brothers they didn't want in. They were always intimidated about the brothers getting in, but it was our women who had the wisdom of a woman, a black woman getting in, right? Nursing your child, taking care of your house, right? Trusting, and then all of a sudden our women were the ones that was reading first. Did you guys know that? Did you know that in history, when they said we couldn't read, it was our women that was getting the books first? Did y'all know that? In African American history, in black history, they were getting the education and coming back and hipping us to it. Clad Muhammad went and got Elijah Muhammad and took him to the temple. So it was always a situation where our women played a part in us becoming better than we were. Remember, our first teachers was our mothers, right? Mama and them. What's wrong with y'all, man? Who am I talking to here? What's going on here? Right? So it's important for us to look at our history and from that context. Why do I say that? Because the social scientists don't want you to look at your women as greater than they are. We're supposed to look at them as great. My first heroes were black women. Marveled at my black mother and her mother and her grandmother and how they had it so together, man. You know, it was just something to see. And I used to always wonder, man, why my uncle and them couldn't get it right, man. Why you dudes always coming out here fighting all the time, man? What's wrong with you guys, man? But they seem to be the ones get it together, have it together. And I realized then what was the problem with us then. Was we were so downtrodden, we started to believe that we couldn't be no better. You see, that we just couldn't get it right, so we might just get drunk somewhere and just hang out down here. When in reality, it was just what they wanted us to believe. And if we believed anything better than that, we could probably be better than who we are. Because it was destined for us to be great. Allah in the Quran says, do you not seek greatness from your Lord? Do you not expect greatness from Allah? We're supposed to expect that. Why? Because the way Allah's sunnah goes is that if you go through so much, He's going to give you a greater reward. So we should be in this day and time looking for our reward for what we went through. Looking for Allah to pay us back. And how is He paying us back? By guiding us to the religion that will get us a sanctuary on a day that there will be no sanctuary except for His sanctuary. So we should be seeking greatness from Him. When we've been wrong, we know that there's some good coming to us. But we be wrong, what happens to us? We make it worse. But we should be expecting good after something happened to us. Because Allah tells us that He doesn't remove something without replacing with something better. Provided we're on the right track. There's one promise that Allah has for us. It is that He will give us what He said He's going to give us, provided we do what we said we were going to do for Him. Because He don't break His promise like that. You going to be down there tomorrow, brother? Inshallah. And you know you ain't going to be there. You know you ain't coming down there, bro. You should have just said, I ain't know. I'm watching the game, my king. It would have been better than you saying, you know, inshallah, I'm going to be down there, brother. You know you wasn't coming. You know you wasn't coming. But Allah, on the other hand, if He say He's going to give you that, then blessed assured He's going to give you that, provided you do what He said. He said, I respond to the suppliant when he calls on me. Let him at the same time respond to my call and believe in me so that he may walk in the right way, or so that she may walk in the right way. Because it's talking about both male and female. Okay? And we get that we all have that advantage. It's open to all of us at the same time. But when Allah is telling us about us being great, He's telling us that He is the one who gives us that. So we shouldn't look for that in people. We should look for that from our Lord. Expect greatness from Him. Do what He says, and He's going to give you what He said He's going to give you. Now, we want to change this situation that's happening in society. We want to change the condition in the government and all that. Just do what Allah said, and He's going to give you what He said He's going to give you. Look what He did for Bilal ibn Rabah. Look at Bilal. Bilal, may Allah be pleased with him, became the most well-known and the most necessary figure in Mecca and in Medina. The most necessary. You couldn't make prayer without hearing from Bilal. You couldn't break bread without hearing from Bilal. You didn't have no resources. You had to go to the Bayt al-Mal, and who was standing there? Bilal, giving you what you requested. If you wanted some counsel from Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and you knocked on his door, Bilal opened the door. So what is that telling all of us who say we're Bilalians? That we need to be everywhere too. That there shouldn't be a place that's of significance in this society and we shouldn't be a part of it. We should be in there. We should be in every place that's of significance in society. Why? Because that's how Allah intended it for us. Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrija linnas. You are the best community sent forth for all mankind. That message is for us too. When we hear it like that, we need to stop making it seem as though, you know, Abu Bakr and Umar and all of these companions were different. They got a different message, or it was a different time, or there was something different there. So when we read it, we're not really thinking that we're in there anywhere, that we're not prophesized in there. And I'm here to tell you, dear brothers and sisters, on this third or second day after the Black History, that we are not allowed to look at it like that. You're not permitted to look at it like that. That you're nothing in history, or that you weren't spoken for. Allah spoke for us a long time ago. We were spoken for a long time ago. The Prophet ﷺ spoke for us a long time ago. Here it is. It was a setting similar to this. They're traveling. The companions of the Prophet were with him, and they said, well, ask the Prophet such and such, one of the companions. And he said, ask him, man, just go ask him. Just ask him if there's anybody better than us as a people, as a group. Ask him. So they pushed this brother up there, right? And he goes up there and he says, Ya Rasulullah, man khayra minna. Is there anyone better than us, O Messenger of Allah? And human nature, remember the Quran is the greatest book of psychology, man. The Quran, the Sunnah, it talks about the psychology of people. So what did he do? He first talked to them. They pushed him to do it, but he had already had his answer. He just wanted to hear it. Some of us just want to hear it. Hear that we good. Hear that we got it. Human nature. You know, your wife make you something to eat, and she want to hear, yeah, that was good. That pie was good, sister. Yeah, that was good pie right there. Oh, that stew was real nice. Thank you so much. Any of it left, right? They don't want to hear the otherwise, right? Did you like that stew? Yes, I did, right? And some of us, we're forced to say it anyway, right? I'm only shucking with you. I know every time they make it is good. But human nature was want to tell you to hear that something that you've done something great that you want to hear. We want to pat ourselves on the back sometimes. Some of us are like that. Everybody want to be thanked every now and then. You know, appreciate it every now and then. And the Prophet said that you should do that. You should tell your people you love them. You should tell them you love them. You should thank them. You should say thank you to them without question. Because if you don't thank them, you don't really thank Allah. So you got to do that. That's part of the spirit. Keeps us motivated, right? Because I've heard people say before, I don't want to do nothing for them because they don't appreciate it. Well, y'all make the guy feel like that. He ain't getting it from, where's he getting it from? Unless he wants y'all to throw a party every time he walks through the door, you know, or announce on the podium, well, that's the brother that donated such and such. Come on up here, brother. Talk beer, right? You did that last year, man. You got some people like that. Guy don't want to donate unless you put his name on the building. Don't want to donate. You got people like that. But now, so the Prophet ﷺ he's about to answer their question, and the companions, they already had the answer in their mind. So before he could answer, they said, well, we strove with you, we sacrificed with you, we made jihad with you, we physically exerted ourselves with you. Is there anyone better than us? Right? So now they're trying to impose the answer now. Because in their mind, they want to hear him say they are. And all of these, and these are some of the major companions that were there who were present at this. First, it started out as a random talk. And that's why it's important for us when we have these random conversations that they're not about gossip and they're not about somebody else and they're not about what you like or dislike, but it's about making some level of improvement, because you never know through the course of that discussion what you're going to stumble upon. So through this random conversation, the companions of the Prophet ﷺ stumbled upon something. And when they said, is there anyone better than us? He says, Naam. And when he says Naam, meaning yes, it blew their minds. Because now they had to put their own answer away. And it was no longer a random talk. Now it was a class for all time. When he told them, yes, there is. Is there anyone better than us, O Messenger of Allah? We strove with you. We sacrificed with you. We did all of these things with you. It was us that did it. Nobody else did it but us. Is there anyone better? And he said, yes. And it blew their minds. So before they can get into the other things that they wanted to get into, but they were in shock. So the prophet said, قَوْمٌ مِّن بَعْدِكُمْ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِي وَلَا يَرَوْنِي. And he said, there will be a people who will come after you, who will believe in me, and who've never ever laid eyes on me. Now, who was he talking about there? And this particular tradition is one of many that the Prophet ﷺ said this about the future generations of people who were after the companions. But he says, believe in me, yu'minuna bi wa la yaroni, who believe in me, but who never laid eyes on me. Who does that sound like? Who does that really sound like, brothers and sisters? Because you fast Ramadan, you pray 5 times a day. Have you ever had a conversation with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Have you ever seen him? Have you ever traveled with Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Have you ever met him? You see, our leader, Imam W.D. Muhammad, never met Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But everything that he gave us predicated on what the Prophet did, so he believed in him. And then when we heard it was from Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we believed in it. This is why we don't fast just on December no more. We fast, when on the right time, right? We don't just make 2 salats a day. We make 5 now, right? Huh? We don't just stand facing the east now. We do a full rakat now, you see, because we believe in it. We never met him, but we believe in it. So we have to start looking at this on a logical basis. What's the logic here? Out of all the communities that you talk about, and you ask your question, why do you do a certain thing? You don't do a certain thing other than the reason why is because the Prophet didn't do it. You hear this all the time. I don't steal, I don't cheat, I don't lie, I don't do this, I don't do that, all because the Prophet didn't do it. And you believe in him because he's your best example. So because of that best example that we have on this year's Black History Month, we find ourselves in a situation where we're being prophesied by the Prophet ﷺ. And any people that believed in Muhammad ﷺ and did everything that he did and never laid eyes on him, that would qualify you as to really believe in that message. You recite the Quran, you follow it to the best of your ability, you enjoying what is right, you forbid what is wrong, but you never saw the Prophet. The Prophet, you never saw him. You never was in his company. You never had a dialogue with him. You pray 5 times a day because he did it. You fast Ramadan in the way he fasted because is the way he explained it. You believe in the oneness of Allah by the way he explained it. You took your Shahada. Why? Because Muhammad ﷺ said in order for you to come in, you got to take Shahada. Buniya Islam al-Khams, that the religion of Islam is based on 5 things. The first thing, Shahada. Right? And you did all of that. You did all of that because you believed it. So when we substantiate the idea of being presented as servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we find ourselves in a good situation when you talk in terms of us having something that qualifies what we're doing today, especially if it was prophesied so many years ago. Some people might argue with this hadith, but they'll turn around and there's 5 or 6 other hadith that is just like this one, that's supported, that are sound supports. One hadith, he said that the greatest, he said, who has the most amazing faith? And they went on ahead and they said the angels. Then they said we do. And then they said the prophets. And he said, how is it that the prophets have it when they're witnessing revelation come down? How is it you when you're in the presence of the messenger of Allah? How is it the angels when the angels are in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And then he qualified who would have the most amazing faith. And he said, those are the people who are not from us and not from you. and they believe in the Quran and all therein, and they abide by it. Who is he talking about? People that never, not for us and not from them, never met them before. Another hadith, he talks about them, how they're having the marks on their faces. They'll be recognized, but they were not. He said, you are my companions, and they are my brothers. And they said, we thought we were your brothers. He said, no, you are my companions. My brothers have not been born yet. And he said, well, how do you recognize them? For the traces of wudu. Ain't that something? So there's many other hadith where the Prophet ﷺ talk about a generation of people coming afterwards that believe in him, who followed him and didn't wrangle about following him. There were people that were with him that wrangled about following him. Many of us, we hear the Prophet said such and such, we rolling with that. May Allah bless you for that. And this doesn't mean that you're somebody that can just lead into a dark alley, but this is one that says that if the Prophet said it, then that's what I'm going to do. Like the Quran says, we hear and we obey. So it's important that we understand that, and we look at all the years that we've got behind us, that we've been on this mission, and you reflect upon it, and you say, well, wow, all this stuff, I've done all this stuff based on the fact that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is reported to have done it. And for him to prophesy people coming afterwards that would believe in that, in front of his companions, who are the greatest teachers in this religion. Because although they were shocked with the response, they didn't argue with the Prophet ﷺ when they found the truth. When he gave them the answer, they didn't argue with the answer. And this is important for us to understand when we're going about the process of learning. It's not about arguing the point. It's not about bickering all the time. It's not even about trying to seem like you know more. It's about the idea behind what can we apply? What can we make an application with? If we look at the life of Muhammad ﷺ, it's there for us to make an application right now in 2019. Imam Muhammad said, look for the Muslim identity looking at the companions. What companion best represents us? Bilal ibn Rabah. Look at his life. Look what he went through. And look how he got through it. Look what he stood for. And look what he withstood. Look how his dedication was. And that's supposed to be us. We're supposed to be everywhere just like he was everywhere. Without any apology. And no, he did not die a slave. He died a servant of Allah. And that was just something that he went through. That was just the circumstances that he went through. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it clear who he was. So he went from slave to master. And he went from that, from being slave to master, from someone that even whose footsteps preceded that of the Prophet in paradise. And that's the goal of all of us. I'm not really concerned about anything that he may have acquired here. I'm concerned about how he acquired paradise. Because we know and understand that we're not staying in Charlotte, man. We not, man. We hear about janazas every week, man. You know. So our goal here is to just look and try our best as a people to do whatever we can do to get something on that scale so that when we're in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we don't have to answer for much and we got some stuff interceding for us. Because that's what the goal is. Yes, dear sister. How you doing anyway? Assalamu alaikum. Which one?
The one where you said, is there anyone better than us?
Look at Tafsir Ibn Kathir, Volume 1. Look it up under Alimul Gaib with the Surah 2, verse 2, who believe in the unseen. And they give you a whole thing in there with the hadith and the actual site. Okay, and we even have it here. It's somewhere here. Tafsir Ibn Kathir, the English version is here. And you can pull it right up.
I have it at home, so I don't know if
No, I think we got it here too.
okay.
It's here somewhere. But for your own references, you can go look that up and you can see it. And then they have some other stuff in there too that they add to it. Some very good stuff in the Tafsir of Ibn Kathir. But this is very important for us to understand. So when they say black history for us is every day. Your history, you're walking history, man. Everyone in this room is part of that. Because it was your experience that have got you to where you are right now. And no one has a more unique story than you. See, because according to them, we ain't supposed to be here. We ain't supposed to be here, man. Look at what we were up against. Look at what our people were up against. How can you make it out of that? How could you make it out of that? With no help. There was no people coming helping us. Remember, nobody came when they were water hosing us. When they was putting us on them boats, man. Nobody came fighting for us. Nobody sent for us. When we got here, nobody sent for us. They didn't have a war to get us back over there. They didn't send for nobody to come back and get us. The same thing happened with Bilal's mother. May Allah be pleased with her. When she was captured, they didn't even send nobody for her. And she was a princess. And they didn't even send nobody back for her. Sound familiar, man? You hear about kings and queens that were put in slavery and brought over here, and they didn't send nobody. So when we got what we got it because Allah chose for us to get it the way we got it. So we ain't even in a position to spend no time with nobody trying to argue with what the ideology conviction was of the Nation of Islam. That wasn't the intent of the Nation of Islam. The intent was to wake us up, and they borrowed some stuff from Islam. And Allah decided that this was enough to get us to come all the way in. Historical date, February 26, 1975. That's a historical date, man. That date should be close to the hearts of all of us every time we hear that date because of what happened to this community. Who came and how they got there and what they were representing. So it's important for us to understand that we are actually the voice of reason for this country, man. Right now, the voice of reason. Why wouldn't I go ask you? But the social scientists would say, don't go ask them. But why shouldn't I ask you, man? You've been through it already. You got through it. Most people that got through what you got through would have never made it. I need to go talk to you. You're an expert in my eyes. I need to go talk to you. I need to go talk to all the seniors that been through that and got through it because you are the experts. Friend of mine, he said that we're going to hear that he was talking to Donald Trump and that people are going to say some bad stuff about him, right? So I texted him and told him, I said, brother, you forgetting that Musa alayhi salam was someone that Allah sent to Pharaoh and told him to go talk to him. He needs somebody to talk to him. Why does he need somebody to talk to him? Because the lives of too many people depend on it. Decision that you make, you see. But we, the social scientists, want us to believe that you can't reform him. He can't be reformed. But Pharaoh was reformed. It was too late, but he was reformed. He became a believer. He believed at the end, didn't he? Abu Sufyan believed at the end. Right? Hind, she believed at the end. She believed at the end, man. Okay? Allah says, وَلَوْ أَنزَلْنَا هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ عَلَى الْجَبَالٍ لَرَأَيْتَهُ خَشْيًا مُتَصَدِيًا مِنْ خَشْيَةِ اللَّهِ وَتِلْكَ أَمْثَلُ نَضْرِبُهَا لِلنَّاسِ لَعَلَهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. He said, had Allah sent down this Quran on a mountain, it would have crumbled out of humility and fear and submission. And had he sent it on a mountain. And he says, and we send forth these similitudes for mankind so that they may reflect. What's the reflection here? If the Quran can make a mountain crumble, it can crumble in soft and hard hearts. Historically, we see that. Historically, we have people, a friend of mine used to be a student at the school. He took his Shahada and he called his mother to tell his mother that he took Shahada. She was big time Christian. She said, don't call here no more, boy. Right? A year later, she took Shahada. A year later. One of the best Muslims you could ever see, too. But she told him, don't call here no more with that stuff. You know? And she took Shahada a year later. So the Quran itself, putting the Quran in you. See, what happens is we keep forgetting that when you say black history, the Quran is in there. You can't discuss black history without the Quran, man. Do you know that? The Quran was snatched from us. We were holding it when they came and got us. We were reciting it when they came and got us. We were saying it in our children's ears when they came and got us. The Adhan was in the right and the Iqama was in the left. When they came and got us, when they captured us, when they put us on those boats, we had the Quran with us. And that's the only thing that came with us when we got here. We still had the Quran. And when they took that Fatiha from us and gave us the Lord's Prayer, and then they even segregated the church, didn't even want us to come into churches, right? But they gave us Christianity anyway. Nothing against Christianity, but this is what they gave us. This was the tool they used, right? And they're wonderful Christians that's out there. This has nothing to do with them. This has something to do with the message that they gave us as a result of taking the message from us. So like Imam Qasim said, may Allah be pleased with him and keep him in your prayers. He said that when we lost all of that, right? And then when we got the Al-Fatiha back, and we started saying, Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, right? When we started saying that, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in, the shaitan said, I thought we got rid of that guy. He said, nah, not yet. He's still here. So in 75, when we got the Quran back in our system, it was already there. It was just dormant. And Allah was waiting for a time to present it to us again. You see? He was waiting for a time to present it to us again. And look how he presented it to us. Man means mind. Words make people. We make the world. So that's part of that's our narrative. That's our black history. You see? We go a little further back than the Don Cheeky. You see? And even that part of our history is a wonderful part of our culture because we loved each other back then. We used to look at each other proud, man. You don't know how hard I used to try to get when I was a kid. I used to try to get that afro to get out there like that. And I used to have such a hard time getting it out there like that. You know, I guess I was from one of them tribes that didn't grow much hair. But I used to always try to get it out there like that. But I used to look at our people and see how proud we looked, man. And then I go to 2019 and I don't see that no more. You know, it's like we traded it or something. And there's only a small few of us that still have that proudness to us. You see? And so we want to return ourselves back to that, but we got to know who we are. And knowing who we are is to recognize the fact that even in 2019, our history is more relevant now than any time before because it's from whence we came. The African proverb is, he who does not know his history loses his mind. He who does not know his history from whence he came loses his mind. Go out there, go up there up the block down there. You see some of our little brothers, their pants are to their knees walking around, listening to quoting some guy on the rap music, you know? And that's the only thing on their mind. They don't even have tomorrow on their mind. It just happens. But Allah says, "Well, tandu nafsu ma kattamagligat," and let every person consider what you put out for tomorrow. What are you leaving here, man? What are you giving to somebody else? What are you helping somebody with? That's part of our history too. Historically, they had what is called the ancient griots in all of these African tribes. They were the oral traditionalists. They were the people that would give you the history of their tribe from generation after generation, and they would narrate it to someone else to take over. That's how they educated their young, through the oral tradition. And we are obligated as Muslims, especially in our set of circumstances, to be those oral traditionalists. Our seasoned members are our oral traditionalists. Talk to them. You'll be surprised how much information they give you. Our problem is we don't talk to them enough. Other than assalamu alaikum, how you doing? That's it. Sit down and talk to them and see. You'll get a taste of that oral tradition. And a lot of our seasoned members, when you start talking to them, they get in their element, man. It's kind of hard to end the discussion. That's right. They can go, man. But they're telling you some information that's relevant. So we're thankful for Allah for that. We're going to stop there. We're thankful to Allah for that, and we are thankful for the community here, Imam Khalil, and Sister Darlene, mother-in-law, father-in-law. We are just so grateful to you for giving us another opportunity to sit before you and share just a little bit. But we also want you to know that you are in our prayers even wherever we're going, because Masjid Shaheed is a wonderful place, and you helped so many people. You know, I talk about Masjid Shaheed when I'm in my travels. And everybody wants to come to Masjid Shaheed. Everybody want to come down and see what they're talking about. And, you know, it's important that we at Masjid Shaheed get the most out of Masjid Shaheed. Okay? And so we got to go back to the teachings of our leader, and he told us that our religion can't be just one, that we just remain Muslim by name only. That there is some things that we have to do. There's an application. There's some work. And that's what it requires. So we thank Allah, and we ask Allah to increase our youth in their interest in Islam, so that we can give it to them. You know, we can give it to them, and they don't feel like they're being forced when they're sitting in here. You know, they're happy with the message. You see, in New York, you got to go out and start all over again with some of these little dudes. You know, because they done got so far out in the street. You see, and one masjid I was working at, and they had the youth, and they were kicking them out of the masjid, man. And I said, "You guys got a lot of nerve, man. You kicking these kids out of the masjid? What's wrong with y'all? I mean, literally, get out of here." And I was like, "What is wrong with you guys?" So they called the police, and the police came and said, and the police got on the brothers and said, "You guys got a nerve to send them out here in this bad neighborhood, and you won't let them go in the masjid where they want to congregate in the masjid, man. You want to kick them out to the street where there's nothing out there for them?" You know? And so we seek refuge in Allah from being like that, you know. And there's other ways that you kick them out too, but you want to keep them in here and try to work with them. And then if they decide to do something other than that, you know you did your best. You did your best, because they're still trying to find their way. And so you pray a lot if they find their way. And that's our prayer. Allahumma rabbana hab lana min azwajina wa dhurriyyatina qurrata a'yun waj'alna lil muttaqina imama. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wal mursalin. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Oh Allah, provide for us the coolness of our eyes from our spouses and our children, and make us leaders among those who are God conscious. And to that we say Ameen. Assalamu alaikum. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
We appreciate the words of enlightenment and wisdom that was brought to us by our brother Imam Abdul Azeez. It was very good, and we thank Allah for you, and we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you will continue to do good work.
Ameen.
As I told you, he's the Imam of Masjid Adam.